The amiable is such a nice guy that people will buy just because they feel good when they're with such a person. The only problem is the amiable, of course, won't ask them to buy because he don't want to impose his will. The driver will almost demand they buy now. And people will shy away from it because all he wants is my money. You see the total opposites? So, the amiable is a very good connector. That's an admirable quality. To meet people, make people feel good about them, develop relationships with others so that people will want to do business with you. Without that quality, it's going to be extremely difficult to succeed in the marketplace as a business person. Then let's look at the expressive. The expressive is very good at inspiring and motivating other people. Now that's an excellent quality when it comes to business. Because if you can inspire people with how exciting your product is and motivate them to want to buy it now, you're going to get a lot of sales, going to make a lot of money. And people will admire you and follow you and lift you up. The expressors are always good achievers because they're always aiming for a new goal. And they push and push until they reach that goal. That is why it's better to be an expressive than it is to be an analytical. Because the expressive may get it wrong a lot of the time, but a lot of the time by pure luck or pure accident or just providence, they'll be in the right place at the right time and things will happen. So which one would you rather be? I'd rather be an expressive than an analytical, but truth be told, if I could be both, I would be the best. I would rather be a driver than an amiable. But if I could combine both, I would be the best. Okay, let's look at the strengths of the driver. Driver is an excellent organizer of work and of people. And everybody's milling around wondering what we should do. And each person comes up with their own brilliant idea of what we should do. And everybody's pulling in their own direction and accomplishing nothing. It takes a driver to step right in there and say, okay, you there, you get that done, you do that, you go there. Puts the whole thing together and everybody finds their place and the job gets done perfectly and the business runs like clockwork. A business without a driver manager will fall apart and everybody will be shooting in their own direction. Kind of like what it says in the Bible in the Old Testament where it says each person did what was right in their own eyes because there was no king in Israel. Well, they needed a king, preferably one who was a driver, an organizer, to take charge and organize people into their place. The driver is totally reliable on getting a job done. Now, if you give a job to an analytical, they will spend a week getting round to it because they can't start until they've got it right. If you give a job to an amiable, they will just not find time because people will keep sidetracking them. If you give the job to an expressive, unless they're feeling excited about it right now and it fits in with their goal, they'll just reject it. But if you give a job to a driver and the driver says, yes, I'll do it, but tomorrow you can pull out your watch. But tomorrow you can contact that person and say, did you get the job done? And the driver will look at you as if to say, told you I'd do, didn't I? Of course it's done. The driver is totally reliable when it comes to work. If you ask the driver to pop round and visit one of the customers and encourage them, don't waste your time. That's not work. That's social. Give a driver a job and it'll get done. Give him social, it'll never get done. So here we have it then. A list of the strengths and the weaknesses. Which one do you want to be now? You want to be the analytical? Perfectionist who can't make decisions, never gets things done? Well, maybe you'd like to be somebody who can tell everybody else how to do their job better. Called an E-nose, because E knows everything. People hate E-nose. People hate somebody who's telling them how to do something, who never lifts a finger to do it themselves. Kind of like the Pharisees in Jesus' day. Jesus said, you load these heavy burdens on people and you don't lift a finger to help them. Analyticals make perfect mavens in business. They can tell you exactly how to do the job, but never get to do it themselves. And there is a place for that. There is a place for that. And in every company, there is a job for the analytical. So, when you go to employing staff in your business, you need to know the strengths and weaknesses of all these temperaments so that you can employ people for specific jobs that need to be done. If you have a job that requires working with people, personnel consulting and customer support, get the amiable. They're the best for the job. If you want somebody who's going to succeed in sales, don't look for anything but expressives. They're the best salespeople of all. And if you need somebody to be a head of department and to manage your business for you, don't look further than the driver. But you see, those are not the people I'm talking to right now. I'm talking to you who's going to be the leader of the business. I'm talking to you who's going to be the one to put the whole thing together. And to do that, you need to be all of the temperaments if possible. If you look at Jesus, you cannot say he was only one temperament. You can identify all four of the temperaments in him. And if you look in the marketplace right now and identify those that are the most successful, you will find that it's the person who has the greatest mix of the temperaments. The person who's more able. In the ministry side, we saw that it was essential for an apostle to be all temperaments, and how God prepares the apostle. We're now looking at the entrepreneur. And for the entrepreneur and the business owner to be most successful, you've got to be an apostle in business. And that's part of the fivefold calling. And I assume that if you've taken this course, that you want to be that leader. You're wanting to start your own business. You want to be in charge of other people. Then you need to be able to function and flow, if possible, in all of these temperaments. Now, sadly, the truth is, you don't. In fact, you grew up probably the most comfortable in one of the temperaments. And as I showed in the study on temperaments, you find that at times you tend to swing to an adjacent temperament. Now, here's how it works. If you're an analytical, you are neither emotively expressive nor assertive. And you can change a little bit every now and then by starting to express more emotion. And when you do that, you swing to amiable. You can change every now and then by becoming more assertive in your will. And when you do that, you swing to driver. And you tend to swing both ways, but you never, ever, ever become emotive and assertive at the same time. The analytical finds it almost impossible to become expressive. We can do it with all the temperaments. The amiable, who's normally emotively expressive, can hold back on their emotions, become analytical. The amiable is not normally assertive, can become more assertive, and in doing that, become expressive. The expressive, who's highly emotive and assertive, can withhold on their emotion and become a driver, or they can withhold on their assertion and become more amiable. The driver can swing to analytical by becoming less assertive. The driver can swing to expressive by becoming more emotively expressive. And if you take the chart that I gave with the study on the temperaments, you'll be able to see this very clearly. So, how do we move in the business realm into a temperamental mix that is more suited to business? It's going to be difficult for you to swing to your opposite temperament. Difficult, but not impossible. Okay, so for now, I'm going to let you off the hook, and I'm not going to insist that you move to the opposite temperament. But if you want to become a true entrepreneurial leader, over time, you are going to have to allow God to use circumstances. You're going to have to allow your mentor to work on you and your spiritual parent to work on you to bring you to a full, rounded person where you can function in all of the temperaments. But for now, here's what you need to learn how to do. You need to learn how to swing your temperament. Well, you do that all the time. But what makes you swing? To becoming more or less emotive or more or less assertive? What makes you swing that way? And you can actually do it by choice, believe it or not. If you're an analytical and you feel comfortable hiding out by yourself, not pushing anybody, not talking, not expressing, you can choose to become more expressive. It takes a bit of effort, but you can start by smiling. It'll be a new experience. Analyticals never smile. They're deadpan. No emotion, no assertion. They could sit there and sometimes, if you didn't see them breathing, you'd wonder if they're alive. Typical bookworm types sit there studying on their computer with that furrowed look on their face. You can choose to swing one way or the other. But when do you choose to become emotive? And when do you choose to become assertive? I want to look at these two parameters, and I want to show you when it's important. When you are dealing with people, and it's necessary for social interaction or involvement in actually working with people, it is essential that you use emotive expression. Now, if you're an amiable, that's your strength. You don't have to work at that. People are your life. People are your strength. You don't have to teach an amiable how to get involved with people. So the analytical has to become amiable when it comes to people. How? By starting to express feelings. Now, don't kid yourself into thinking that any one of the temperaments are not emotional. Don't think that because the analytical does not show emotions, that the analytical does not have emotions. Analyticals can be intensely emotional people, but the emotions are all hidden inside. That's the difference. So don't try and come out this and say, I'm just not an emotional person. Don't kid yourself. We actually all rely on our feelings, and we all do the things that we feel. The only difference is you don't show anybody your feelings. And that is what is meant by the emotive parameter. So the analytical must learn to express the feelings that are inside. Okay? You could start by smiling. You could open your mouth and say a few words. It will be a new experience. You could talk to people. And maybe you'll start out by faking it and putting on that big front. But you know, until you do that, people think that you're just so miserable, you don't care about them, you're stuck on your own, in your own little world there. So you put on a smile, and you show more openness, and you talk to people and interact with them. And lo and behold, suddenly the analytical becomes an amiable. Well, the expressive doesn't need to increase emotion. The expressive and the amiable actually are naturally people-oriented. So when it comes to being involved with people, those temperaments don't have to change. But the analytical and the driver, they have to change. The driver has to move from not expressing emotion to being a person who expresses the feelings. To see a driver smile is a beautiful and unexpected thing.